This is the center of the Aztec calendar, um, which was Mayan. So the Mayans created the very center part, and then the Aztecs expanded on that and created the outer part, which is you can see it gets more and more detailed. This God in the center, I've got on your slideshow. You see his tongue out. He's yelling, screaming for more hearts, more bodies, more sacrifices. This is part of the Aztec belief that they stole life from the gods and they had to repay them. And actually goes back to old Toltec philosophy. But the idea is what that was part of their sacrifices. It was an honor to be sacrificed to the gods because you were doing something for the community. It was a selfless sacrifice for the community to appease the gods. So you were honored until you were sacrificed. And of course, they ripped the heart out of your body with an obsidian knife and offered it to the gods. And usually they did this. They had, like I said, the Aztecs had mass sacrifice. The Maya let you fight for your rights to survive or die. We'll get into more of that when we talk about the Mayan ball game. But the Aztecs would do mass sacrifices. And today we think a lot of that is because times were rough. You know, they're on the edge of the Chihuahuan Desert. They were over cultivating their land. And as more and more population expanded, they need more food to feed their people. And they didn't have it because they were depleting their resources. And so a lot of people, and it was already in chaos when Cortez arrived. And because the religion was based so much on prophecy, that's how they Cortez was able to fool them and conquer the territory because they thought maybe this was a god promising them, a solution because they were already having chaotic problems. Kind of like we're experiencing with the environment today. A lot of people think that that was the real downfall of the Aztecs. So like I said, the Maya come way before the Aztecs and their empire, they were warring city-states. So they were all independent city-states with their own ruler, and they would get jealous of each other's prosperity and actually go to war. This is actually how they captured victims too. You see the chakmul here, that is a symbol of a fallen warrior. And the Maya used to sacrifice their victims. They'd have them lay across this when they cut out the heart. It's debatable who they sacrificed. Did they sacrifice the winners of the ball game, or did they sacrifice the losers of the ball game? I have been to this site and I've climbed this pyramid too. Back then it was very cheap. I know right now it's a very tough time to go to Mexico, and I miss being able to go there. But this is when you walk. I think this image over here, when you walk down this way and take a right here, this is the ball court over here. And we'll show you a close-up of the ball court here. The ball court is, here's where the ruler sat, and you see it's a long one. And the ball game was very sacred. Like I said, there was a lot of sports in Mesoamerica and all over the Americas. And the ball court was sacred. They were not just playing a game. They were actually acting out the cosmos, the suns and the moon and the planets and how they revolved, and the whole story of their creation myth and how the Maya believed the universe worked. So when they captured their victims, instead of mass sacrificing the way the Aztecs did, they had them compete in a ball game. And for many years, it was argued amongst historians, was it the loser that they sacrificed to the gods, or was it the winner? Because, of course, you want to give the gods your very best, but if you knew if you won the game and you were going to be sacrificed, you might not be that willing to play the game or try your very best. So the Maya did not tell the players about the sports and what was gonna happen, and the whole game was rigged. So now we know it doesn't matter who won or who lost. They already knew who they were going to sacrifice before it got started. Now the ball court here, like I said, it's interesting where the ruler sat was right up here, and they watched the ball court from there. Now The game was a little bit like soccer and basketball combined. You couldn't use your hands, you had to use your feet and the rest of your body to pass and serve the ball. And here's a little hoop that you had to get on. It's on the side of a wall here. I've actually walked up to it. Really kind of cool. It's small. The images you might see in books make it look really big like a basketball, but you can see it's a tiny little hoop here in comparison to the bricks that are around it. You can see the scale there. And on the side, right underneath this ball here, you've got this carved relief that inscripts that shows the game. This is a close-up of what it looks like. See if we can get a big image here. This is Getty Images. They do a lot for teachers. So anyhow, as you can see, this ball player has just had his head chopped off, rolling around on the ground here, and 7 snakes are coming out of his neck. And you can see the Aztec priest here that's blowing. This is always a symbol of poetry, or in this case, probably a chant or an incantation with a sacred ritual that they're doing. So they took their ball game very, very seriously. The Maya were expert mathematicians. They actually invented the number 0. We know in India the number 0 was invented, and also in the Mayan culture, those were the first 2. So they both can claim that they invented it. It stands to reason that 2 cultures could invent the same thing without them communicating. There was a need for the number 0. And when you get to a high level of mathematics, you need a symbol for the void. And so the Maya shows you the level that they got to in understanding of astronomy and mathematics. They recorded their own history, and they had their own form of paper that they invented, which they wrote their own history on. And they had volumes and volumes of text. Unfortunately, when the Spanish conquistadors came through, they saw them as evil works of the devil and tried to burn them all. Luckily, there was a few in the crowd that did not like the idea of somebody's history being burnt, so they smuggled some codices, what we call a text, codice, out. And today we have 3 or 4 surviving of these Mayan texts. They're rich with Mayan knowledge. And for many years, it wasn't until about the 1980s that we were able to crack the Mayan code, because their writing system was very, very sophisticated. So yeah, just recently, it was about 24-year-old young man cracked the Mayan code, won a Pulitzer for it. So kind of incredible. So now we can actually read the Mayan hieroglyphs, which are still pretty complex to read. But you can see here by this map, Mayan civilization all over the place. They say that we haven't even discovered a lot of the Mayan ruins today. They're still peeking out of the jungles. Airplanes that fly over the jungles can see remnants of ruins, Mayan ruins all over the place. So this area, of course, is on the edge of a tropical rainforest and jungle territory. So rich with a lot of rich in nature, rich in all kinds of tropical environment. So a lot of it is still left to be discovered. It takes a lot of money to excavate a site. So, of course, we look at the sites in your book. We've looked at a lot of the major sites in your book that have already been long excavated, taken years to excavate them. Just to give you an idea of how mathematically accurate their structures were, here's the one that that's in your slideshow in your book of Chichen Itza. Like we said, there's always 9 levels to the Mayan pyramid because they believe there was 9 levels to the underworld. So very much like the ancient Egyptians, they believed, like most cultures, in a heaven and a hell, and depending on what kind of life you lived, you went to the good parts or the bad parts. So this is reflecting, again, all their buildings reflected their own religious beliefs. And remember, they were brightly painted back then. And to give you an idea of how mathematically accurate and knowledgeable the mathematicians, and there's a lot of math in architecture, they actually, their buildings do these neat little tricks on the solstices. The solstices are the changing of the seasons. and which was very important for farming, and farming was all about survival. So on December 23rd, the winter solstice, when the sun comes up, it casts a shadow that makes it look like a snake going into the earth, blessing the earth. Another neat little building that I've been to that has some of the neat tricks. This is Tulum, right along the edge of the Yucatan Peninsula. Great place to look. I mean, perfect strategic point for keeping an eye out for your enemies and guarding your town. This was a religious site. And at Tulum, this is the particular building that looked right out over the edge of this beautiful turquoise blue Caribbean water. They say there's over 9 shades of blue in the Caribbean. Beautiful, beautiful water at this time. And they say it's the coral that makes it that color. And also, we know the blue from the water is just a reflection of the blue in the sky. Nonetheless, though, this building right here has a crack along the back that was actually built that way. And again, on December 23rd, the winter solstice, you have this little god right in this cavity right here that's actually upside down with his hands going this way. And on December 23rd, when the sun comes up, it looks like he is holding an orb of light in his hands, blessing it into the earth again for good farming for the year to come. So again, that shows incredible precision with the Mayan mathematics and their architecture and their knowledge of astronomy. This is one of their observatory towers that they would climb to and study the stars at night. That was one of the responsibilities of the Mayan priests. So they really knew with accuracy. They have 2 types of calendars. The one that we call the Mayan calendar or the Aztec calendar, the circular one that I just showed you, is more of a map or kind of like a horoscope chart to plan when to go to battle. Their actual calendar, where they recorded their history and prophesized about the future, is a linear calendar that was actually recorded in a long text book that came out. So it was lengthwise, not circular. So Mayan artists were highly regarded, and they created some incredibly beautiful art. They wrote their history all over their walls in relief patterns. They created some incredible sites. This is Palenque, farther down, way down deep into the Yucatan Peninsula on the west side. And this is where we have another great temple. This was the place where Lord Pakal reigned, one of the only warrior chiefs that we knew for many years. He was called by name. And the ancient astronaut enthusiasts are really fascinated by this guy because somebody got the bright idea. And Temple of Inscriptions is in your book too, and that's right over here. Somebody got the bright idea to excavate the back of this pyramid in the 1970s. And what they found was Lord Pakal's sarcophagus, where he was, his coffin, where he was buried. And what's amazing about this is what Lord Pakal looked like. The Maya had all kinds of beauty secrets. Remember, beauty is something that is relevant to a culture, and what we think of as beautiful today, they might not have thought of beautiful in the past. And the Mayan loved these sloped foreheads, and he's got this beautiful high cheekbones and deep sloped forehead. When they were babies, they would literally soften, while the baby skull was still soft, they would mold it into this elongated shape. So they also filed their teeth down to points, and they did a lot of tattoos and piercings too. So those were many of their forms of beauty. So the Mayans really did have and of course, feathers. Feathers were a form of currency, and it was also a symbol of status, too. So you see Lord Pakal with his beautiful headdress here showing his status. So when they excavated the back of that one particular temple, they came up with the sarcophagus of Lord Pakal, which was very interesting. I'll do this one here, copyright free. So anyhow, what you see here that's amazing about this image is this is supposed to be Lord, look at this one here, that's somebody's highlighted nice and dark with contrast. The restoration as well. But this is a fascinating image. This was on the cover of his sarcophagus, the lid of his sarcophagus. And what we see is a person in some kind of a capsule. And I'm going to have to go back to this one so we don't get that. Oh, I'll still get that image. But you see a person in a capsule. And around him, you've got fire coming out of the back of the capsule right here, yeah? And he's enclosed in there. And what's amazing about this, I'm going to flip back to this one here. What's amazing about this image is there's some kind of device coming from the ceiling and going up into his nose, like a breathing apparatus. And he's got his hand on one lever and a foot on another lever. And then this hand is pulling out a lever. This hand's pushing in a lever. This one's pulling out a lever. So it's kind of a fascinating image, and some compare it to this right here. Yeah, it looks just like the astronauts when they went off into space. So it's kind of amazing. There's all kinds of mysteries behind the Maya. What you believe is entirely up to you. Obviously, there'll be nothing about Lord Pakal being an ancient astronaut on the exam, but it's interesting to know that there are kinds of mysteries that we still have not solved about these ancient civilizations.